The gates of Silverpine had not opened for Elena Voss in 3 years, and she had never imagined she would walk through them again. Yet here she was, standing at the edge of the stone road that led to the royal compound, holding the hands of 2 toddlers, while a third rode on her hip, all 3 children looking up at the towering walls with wide, curious eyes. She had not come back for herself. She had come back because she had no other choice. For the past year, she had felt them getting closer. The rogue packs that hunted lone wolves and stray bloodlines had picked up her scent somewhere near the eastern border, and no matter how many times she moved, no matter how carefully she covered her tracks, they kept finding her again. She had run out of places to hide. There was only one place left where her children would be safe, and it was the last place she ever wanted to return to. The guards at the gate recognized her immediately. Their eyes went first to her face, then to the children beside her, and she watched the exact moment realization hit them. One of the guards, a young man she vaguely remembered training under the king years ago, went pale. "Wait here," he said, his voice unsteady. "Please, just wait here." She did not wait long. Word moved through the compound faster than she expected, and within minutes, she was being escorted through corridors she once knew by heart, past faces that turned to stare as she passed. She kept her chin high and her steps steady, even as her heart pounded against her ribs. The children stayed close to her, sensing her tension the way children always did, quiet and watchful. The doors to the throne hall opened, and there he was. Alpha King Damien Ashgrove sat exactly as she remembered him, straight-backed and composed, a man who had built his entire life around control. 3 years had changed him. His shoulders carried more weight now, his eyes held more shadows, and there was a hardness in his jaw that had not been there before. He looked like a man who had spent years refusing to feel something, and had mostly succeeded. When his eyes landed on her, that composure did not break, not yet. Then his gaze moved to the children. Elena watched it happen. She watched the exact second his human mind tried to make sense of what he was seeing, tried to calculate ages and timelines, tried to build some explanation that made sense. She watched him fail, and she watched something else take over, something faster than thought, something that did not need explanations at all. His wolf recognized them first. Damien's whole body went rigid, then trembled, as if something inside him had been struck. He rose halfway from his throne, and then, astonishingly, sank back down onto one knee in front of it, one hand pressed to the floor, as though he needed it to stay upright. The court around him fell utterly silent. No one had ever seen the Alpha King lose his composure in public, not once in all the years of his reign. "Damien," Elena said quietly, the first time she had spoken his name in 3 years. He looked up at her, and in his eyes she saw the war being fought inside him. Grief, fury, disbelief, and underneath all of it, something raw and helpless that she had never seen on his face before. "They're mine," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," she answered. He stood slowly, and when he spoke again, his voice had dropped to something low and dangerous. 3 years, Elena. 3 years, and you never once." He stopped himself, glancing at the children, and visibly forced his anger back down. "We will talk, not here." She nodded, grateful he had not made a scene in front of the entire court, though she could feel dozens of eyes on her, calculating, whispering, already reshaping the balance of power in the room. She had expected this. She had known that returning would mean walking into a nest of political tension, and she braced herself for it. They spoke privately in his study that evening, after the children had been fed and settled into a guest chamber, with 2 guards Damien trusted personally stationed outside the door. Elena had refused to let them out of her sight for more than a few minutes, and Damien, to her surprise, had not argued. "Tell me everything," he said, standing by the window with his back to her, his hands clasped so tightly behind him that his knuckles had gone white. "From the beginning. Why did you leave?" Elena sat down, suddenly exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with the journey. "Because someone told me you already knew, and that you had decided the children were a liability. Someone told me you had ordered them removed before they were born." Damien turned so fast she flinched. "Who told you that?" "Your beta, Corin." His expression shifted from disbelief to something colder. Corin told you I ordered that. He said it came from you directly. He said if I stayed, I would lose them, and possibly my own life along with them. I didn't have time to question it. I didn't have time to verify anything. I just ran. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and she hated herself for it. She had promised herself she would not show weakness here, not after everything she had survived alone. Damien was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. I never gave that order. I didn't even know you were pregnant until you disappeared, and I found out afterward from people who had seen you before you left the territory. I searched for you for over a year, Elena. I sent trackers to 3 different regions. I thought you left because you didn't want this life. I thought you left because of me. The pain in his voice was unmistakable, and for the first time since walking back through those gates, Elena allowed herself to feel the weight of what she had lost, not just for herself, but for him too. 3 years apart, both of them believing different lies, both of them suffering for reasons that were never true. I would never have run from you if I believed there was another way, she said softly. I ran to protect them. That's all I have ever done since the day I found out I was carrying them. Damien crossed the room and knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. His wolf, still simmering just beneath his skin from the shock of the day, seemed to calm slightly at the contact, as though some deep instinctual need had finally been satisfied. They're safe now, he said. Both of you. All of you. I promise you that. Elena wanted to believe him. 3 years of running had taught her not to trust promises easily, but something in the way his wolf had reacted the moment he saw the children, something so immediate and instinctual that no lie could have produced it, told her this was different. His wolf had known them as his own, before his mind even had the chance to argue. Over the following days, the compound buzzed with a tension that Elena recognized well. She had grown up around pack politics long enough to know what it meant when ambitious families suddenly found their plans upended. Several prominent houses had spent years angling their daughters toward the king, hoping for an alliance that would secure their bloodlines a place near the throne. The sudden appearance of 3 heirs, undeniable in their resemblance to the king, ended those ambitions instantly, and not everyone accepted the loss gracefully. Damien doubled security around the children without telling Elena directly, though she noticed it immediately. Extra guards at every doorway. A tracker stationed near the northern woods, where the rogue packs had last been sighted. He was not a man who spoke about his fears, but he acted on them constantly, and Elena began to understand that this was simply how he loved, quietly, and through action rather than words. The real danger arrived on the 5th night. Elena woke to the sound of the alarm horn echoing across the compound, a deep and mournful sound she remembered from her training years, one that meant the outer wall had been breached. She was on her feet instantly, gathering the children from their beds before the guards even reached her door. The king wants you moved to the inner chamber, one of them said, breathless. Now. She did not argue. She carried the youngest triplet herself, while the guards took the other 2, moving quickly through corridors lit only by torchlight, the sound of fighting growing louder somewhere beyond the walls. Her heart hammered with a fear she had not felt in years, not since the early days of running alone, pregnant and terrified, with nowhere safe to go. The inner chamber was reinforced stone, meant to withstand exactly this kind of attack, and once the children were settled inside with guards at every entrance, Elena allowed herself one moment to breathe. Then she thought of Damien, out there somewhere, fighting whatever had breached his walls, and the fear returned tenfold. She did not have to wait long for news. Within the hour, one of Damien's senior warriors arrived to report that the attack had been repelled, that the rogue pack responsible had been driven back into the northern woods, and that the king himself was uninjured, though furious. What Elena learned the next morning changed everything. The rogue pack had not attacked randomly. They had been given information about the layout of the compound, about the exact location of the guest chambers, about the schedule of the guards. Someone inside Silverpine had been feeding them details, and when Damien's trackers followed the trail backward, it led directly to Corin. The same beta who had told Elena 3 years ago that the king wanted her children removed. Damien confronted him in the same throne hall where Elena had first returned, and this time it was Damien's fury on full display, cold and precise rather than wild. Corin, cornered and desperate, admitted everything. He had wanted the throne for his own bloodline. He had lied to Elena to drive her away before the children could be born within pack territory, believing that without proof of an heir, he could eventually maneuver his own family into position. When that plan failed, and Elena returned with undeniable proof of the king's heirs, he had grown desperate enough to sell information to outside forces, hoping chaos might still let him seize what he wanted. Damien stripped him of rank and exiled him from the territory that same day, a punishment that in wolf culture carried a weight far heavier than it sounded, cutting him off entirely from the protection and belonging of pack life. With the threat resolved, the compound slowly began to settle into something calmer. Elena found herself staying longer than she had originally planned, telling herself it was only until she was certain the danger had truly passed, though some quieter part of her recognized that she no longer wanted to leave. She and Damien spent evenings together after the children were asleep, slowly filling in the 3 years they had lost. He told her about the search he had conducted, the false leads that had crushed him again and again. She told him about the small apartments she had lived in under different names, about learning to fight when necessary, about the fear that had followed her every single day since she first felt her children move. Somewhere in those quiet conversations, the guarded distance between them began to soften, not into the same relationship they once had, because too much had happened for that, but into something new, built on honesty rather than assumptions, tested rather than simply trusted. The formal presentation of the triplets to the packs took place a month later, a grand and careful ceremony meant to remove any doubt about their place in the bloodline. Elena stood beside Damien as the children were introduced, and she watched the packs who had gathered bow their heads in acknowledgement, some with genuine warmth, others with the stiff formality of those still adjusting to a shifted future. Damien's wolf, calm now, settled beneath his skin in a way it had not been since Elena's return. It no longer strained against a truth his human mind had needed days to accept. It had known from the very first moment, before words, before explanations, before even a single question had been asked. That evening, as the celebration quieted and the children finally slept, Damien found Elena standing alone, near the same window where he had once demanded answers from her. "I used to think ruling this territory was the hardest thing I would ever do," he said. "I was wrong. The hardest thing was living 3 years without knowing you were out there, doing this alone." Elena turned to face him. "You don't have to imagine it anymore." He reached for her hand, and this time, neither of them pulled away. There would still be difficult days ahead, rebuilding trust that had been broken by someone else's lies, learning how to be parents together, after years of Elena doing it entirely on her own. But standing there in the quiet of the compound, with their children finally safe, and their future no longer shadowed by deception, both of them understood that whatever came next, they would face it together. The wolf had known it all along. Now, at last, so did they.